How's everyone doing today? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 90. Today, my special guest is James Bauman from the legendary epic band Racebannon, just one of my all-time favorite bands of all time. The catalog alone speaks for itself. He was in Repseki, Wenches, Medusa, Torturess, Mersbannon. I'm going to grab you right now. Hopefully this works. James, how you doing?
Hey, am I sideways or should I turn it around?
Yeah, yeah, you're sideways. Perfect. You hear me all right?
I need a lower chair. Yeah, we're good. I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. I want to thank you so much for taking time out with me. I got to get my flight too now. All right. Yeah, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. Race Bannon, like I've said a million times, is one of my favorite bands. I almost have 100 talks on here, and I must speak about Race Bannon at least once every 2 episodes. So it's just a thrill to talk to you, and thank you again for taking time out.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I bet one of the reasons why you are mentioning Racebannon a lot is because you're always talking to all my New York friends. We have a lot of mutual friends, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I need to fix these headphones. Sorry about that. No, thanks. That's nice to say. It's I haven't talked about Racebannon in a long time, so it's it's hard to remember. It feels like a whole lifetime ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And you're talking about Antonio and
yeah. I know that you talked with Antonio and Vinny
Messina.
and Messina and my
Yeah,
dudes.
yeah. I talk to those guys pretty frequently. So yeah, I was bugging them to get you on, and that's how we kind of linked up through those guys.
Yeah, yeah. It's good because of the fake piss band that some of those guys are doing. We've been able to reconnect, and after not seeing each other for a long time, so now it's good to be in constant contact again, and yeah, it feels good. Um, Antonio and I have been doing some things together, some label things together, so that's awesome. But and then yeah, the fake piss, I put out a small release for them, and that was super fun. I'm pretty excited for that band.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing them live if I can, if they come around the New England area.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you heard, if you listened yet to the leaked record, but it sounds pretty great.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
yeah. I heard some songs. Yeah, it's really good. Really.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know what to
yeah,
expect. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And then I heard it, and I was like, "Wow, this is like some good stuff." I was pleasantly surprised. Not that I thought it would be bad, but I had no idea what kind of style it would be. And
yeah. Because you got people from all these different bands. When I first heard about it, I thought, God, it's going to be like so chaotic. There's like 20 people in the band. uh, but no, it ended up being pretty awesome. And then it actually ended up sounding exactly what I would think it would sound like, and I'm pretty into it. So yeah, I'm excited for them. I can't wait for. We've talked about doing some other things down the road. The band that I currently have, Wenches, has talked about doing a split with Fake Piss.
oh, nice,
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that and hearing more from those guys.
nice, nice. Usually, the first thing I usually ask on these talks is I kind of go back to your childhood, and what kind of music were you listening to when you were a kid, and then what kind of transitioned you to listening to like more aggressive music, hardcore punk, whatever it would turned out to be.
Yeah, so I think that well, for me it started like probably a lot of kids would say with Kiss. The kid next door. he had to get rid of all of his Kiss stuff. Like his mom, like I don't even remember how old he was. He was a little bit older than me, but I was probably 8 or 10, somewhere around there. And he just came over with a box full of every Kiss record, posters, all kinds of things. Here, hide this for me. I can't. My mom won't let me have it anymore. And that was it. Like we had this disco ball record player in the basement. I remember I think I put on Kiss Alive. That was the first thing that I heard, and it blew me away. And I thought, whoa, this is something clicked, and I knew that I wanted to like get into playing music, but just like heavier music. And then it was kind of a natural, the way that it happened in like grade school. Somehow I got into like hair metal, and I want to say like in the 6th or the 7th grade, and I feel like I guess that's when hair metal was like real popular. Poison and Bon Jovi and those Skid Row and those bands were like kind of like all over the radio.
Yeah.
And then I sort of jokingly bought Slayer Rain and Blood on cassette. There was a kid in school that he kind of made fun of me because I liked metal. A lot of people watching, I'm sure, also experienced the same thing. And he made jokes about Slayer. I didn't know who Slayer was.
Yeah.
And I went to a Catholic grade school, and so he made a lot of jokes about worshiping Satan because, and at that time I listened to like, Poison and those bands, Motley Crue. I mean, granted, Motley Crue had Pentagram on the cover of Shout of the Devil, but that's beside the point. But anyway, yeah. So I came across. I used to go shopping with my mom, and I'd kind of break away and go to the music store, which I guess thinking about it now, they primarily sold cassettes and LPs.
Yeah.
And so I came across Rain and Blood, and I decided I'm just going to try this. I don't have any idea what this is, and I felt like I had to hide it, like. But I remember I listened to it on headphones, and as soon as first note, just, oh man, the impact that it made, it just knocked my head off. It was pretty exciting. So yeah, then I just like started going further and further with metal and like heavier and heavier, and I think that I always held on to my love for metal, but just had sort of a natural transition into like hardcore and punk.
Yeah.
Punk being at that time for me, being the Ramones and Sex Pistols, sort of definition of punk. And I didn't think that I really was into that. Like it was okay, but I think that really being into metal and like really liking the heavy guitars, I think that like that was so awesome that I started getting into like hardcore. And like I think back then if somebody had like a tape and they were talking about this band and this album, I was constantly asking, can you make me a copy, can you dub me that? I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, like, wow, that used to be such a big thing.
Yeah.
And when your friend would get that album, like, does anybody have it? And then they'd make copies for everybody, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I remember a couple of friends in high school, like, I think I was a freshman, like, just new to high school, and this guy kind of knew, but not really, just gave me some dub tapes, kind of like, here, get into this, Yeah. And some of them weren't labeled, and I didn't know for the longest time, what some of them. For example, the Melvin's Ozma album was on one of those cassettes, and I didn't have any idea who that was.
Yeah.
And ended up being one of my favorite bands. But at the time, it was all so new and mysterious, and it was pretty exciting. But as far as like going the route of hardcore, one of those cassettes had the first, or actually it was the second Warzone album, and I didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought it was Warzone, and somebody had heard it when I was listening to it and said, "Yeah, that's Warzone." So when I was at the tape store, I saw that New York City hardcore comp.
Yeah.
The way it is,
Oh yeah.
I saw that Warzone was on there, and I bought that. And man,
Yeah.
that changed everything. And I know that a lot of people that you know, and a lot of people that are watching that watch your show you do here probably had a similar experience. That's a pretty popular comp.
Yeah, definitely. I almost like those tracks better than some of the tracks that are on the albums that they actually like re-recorded for.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
Think of It All tracks and stuff like that. Like the Warzone tracks are amazing on that comp. I like those better than like anything that they re-recorded, and those two songs that they did on that comp. It's just amazing sounding.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, at the time, I guess I didn't quite know that when I would get the album and not understand like that it doesn't sound the same. You
Yeah.
know, I didn't really understand how recording worked yet. You know, and like how putting out records, how that all worked. I mean, I quickly learned that because you know, like a lot of us, I became like a total label nerd. You know, that was on Revelation, so then it was like I gotta have to get everything on Revelation. Everything that has the Revelation logo, it's mine. You know, as well as every band on that comp for the most part. And I remember when I think about that comp, I remember I don't know about you, but the Super Touch track
Yeah.
was like that was the track. That was the one,
So good.
and everybody was so blown away by it. It was so different. It was incredible.
That's
But,
tracks Searching for the Light, right?
Searching for the
Yeah.
Light, yeah.
Track.
Yeah, so good. So good. So yeah, that comp, and then, you know, that kind of opened the door to like to Revelation and then all these other bands. And then, you know, like how we used to do, you look at the thanks list inside of that the band, you know, every band that they've got listed there, you're like, I better check these guys out. That's a good name, you know.
It's funny you say Kiss, because Kiss was the first concert that I ever went to. I missed the original lineup, but I saw Creatures of the Night tour with Vinnie Vincent, and Eric Carr had just joined, so it was like their last tour with makeup before they, you know.
Oh wow!
But I think I was like, I don't even know, 10 maybe, something like that. But yeah, my mom took me there because my mom was kind of like a hippie and liked hard rock and stuff like that. So she ended up taking me to the Creatures of the Night tour. So that was my first thing. And I kind of have the same background. I listened to heavy metal, glam metal for a little while, hair metal, and then it turned into like Slayer. But I was kind of earlier into Slayer. I was like, you know, Haunting the Chapel, I think, was the first thing I heard. And then I got the Hell Awaits album, and I was like, oh my God, the cover.
Yeah.
Like, uh-oh. And then
oh yeah.
Once I heard Rain and Blood, it was over. That's like one of the greatest albums of all time. And on top of that, I was a hip hop guy too. So that Slayer album being on Def Jam at the time,
I know, right?
was crazy. And then you get a Public Enemy song with Kerry King playing guitar on samples. Was very cool to me at that time too. So yeah, same thing. Like and then I started listening to New York hardcore, and obviously I'm like from around Boston. And so I started listening to all the Boston stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's very similar to my taste too.
Yeah. Well, my first concert was also Kiss. It wasn't. Yours is a little cooler. Mine was on the like Crazy Nights tour or something.
I went to actually. I saw Animalize, Creatures of the Night, Animalize, and Crazy Nights album.
It was with Ted Nugent.
Yeah, and they were like all cool. They had like the neon colors and stuff on that tour. Yeah, I remember that. It's crazy.
Paul Stanley wearing those tennis shoes with the, you know, they had the Velcro at the top, but they like went way up his leg and had like 14 Velcro straps. Good look.
Um, speaking of like the old days, did you always want to play guitar after you heard Slayer and heard about these bands? When did you pick up a guitar and start playing?
Um, well, I originally wanted to play the drums,
Hmm.
and my mom said, "No way in hell you're gonna play the drums." And then it became this sort of agreement that if I played the violin, I could play the drums. So I played the violin for a bit, and then somehow I just wanted to play the guitar. I remember being at like a flea market or something with my dad and asking, "Hey, can I have this $30 guitar?" And that kind of started everything. Um, but yeah, no, I didn't really. I wasn't like that uh, into the idea of playing the guitar at the time. It just kind of happened.
Now, were you self-taught or did you go to lessons? How did that come about?
Self-taught. I went to maybe 2 lessons,
Yeah,
if that.
yeah, that's how it usually pans out.
I know I hear a lot of guitar players that are kind of from the same scene saying, I just wanted to play this. I just wanted to learn how to play this song.
Yeah.
Why I have to learn all this crap? No, I want to learn how to play this. So it was okay. I just learned how to play Purple Haze. I'm good. I don't need to go back. I can take it from here. Yeah. So yeah, I think I learned most of it just actually with bands that I would put together.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids that just immediately had to have a band, and it's been that way since I was like 12. I've always had a band. And like if I don't have a band to play with, I feel lost. I hate it. So yeah, I think I kind of just taught myself as I kind of learned how to play in a band and learned how to play with other people, and um, yeah, just kind of started with just easy punk stuff,
Yeah.
like a lot of people do, and I was in a metal band here and there, and just always looking for the people that were serious and that weren't going to move away, or that weren't just going to say, I don't want to do this anymore, or say, I'm not good enough for this band or whatever, because that kind of thing would happen constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was able to put together a couple different bands in high school. Um, Gosh, I don't know. I was probably in like, no, between 5 and 10 bands in high school that were active, or tried to be active, I should say. Um, yeah.
So what was your first band that you actually like played out to, like at a venue or?
Oh yeah. I think Switch Dance was a band that I had. It was a hardcore band. Often was told that Switch Dance sounded a bit like Downcast, which nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Uh, Switch Dance played a decent amount of shows out. We did our sort of biggest show we did was opening for Avail, um, and it was a huge show, and we had never played anything like that before. And there was so many kids, and there was a band that I think that was touring with them that was supposed to play before them. We were going to play the local, and they canceled. Something happened with them, so it was like, no, you guys have to go on, and you need to play a longer set. You're going to go on right before Veil, and I remember that our singer, his name was Chris. He got really nervous and vomited a little. Um, he was giving me you see how many people are here? We have to get, because it was a high stage
Yeah.
too, and it went great and people loved it, and it was super awesome. And that was trying to learn how to get paid was like such a weird experience for me. I had never gone through anything like that before, And so when it was time to settle up, I didn't know like how to even speak to that, you
Yeah.
know. And it was like, how much do you want? I don't know. What's fair? I have no idea what to ask for. I've never done this before,
Yeah.
you know. I don't know how much money you've made.
Yeah, exactly. Um, now, what kind of got you into the more like crazier style of hardcore? Because Racebannon is a band, and Repsecki as well is bands that, especially Racebannon, isn't really pinpointed on a genre. You can't say they're like a hardcore band. They're not. They're certainly not a screamo band. They're not. There's so many different styles in Racebannon. What kind of like got you into the aggressive, like crazier per se stuff than the typical hardcore stuff? Like the Downcast and the New York hardcore stuff. What kind of got you in that movement towards that style?
uh, I think myself and some of the other guys in Race Band, and we kind of all got into, like a lot of the gravity bands. Um, we were into a lot of those real screamy, kind of weirdo bands, I think that I always wanted Race Band to be more of just a hardcore band. And it just kind of, it was just a natural progression. It just kept getting weirder and weirder. So I think that, the main thing is that each person in the band had different influences and was really into different things, and we tried to like keep an open mind about everything as we would write things, and kind of just try to make sure that it wasn't okay. This is the kind of band that we are, and we're going to stay just like that. I mean, I remember when we were putting the band together, I made a big deal about staying together forever. Like, we've got to stay together forever. Because, like I said, like going through high school and everything, like trying to keep a band together was like always such a goal,
Yeah.
And then when I get these guys together and it clicks and we're playing, together, and it feels good and it's making sense. It's like, can you commit?
Yeah.
You guys want to get married? you know? And everybody agreed to that. I mean, the band stayed together for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that worked. But yeah, I think that just being open to trying new things. We were that band that just didn't always fit on the bill. We didn't always fit on the comp. We didn't always fit on the bill. But we were totally okay with that.
Yeah.
We started getting into like doing noise and things like that, and a lot of people hated it. It was just one of those bands that you either love it or you hate it. I mean, but enough people loved it that we kept going.
Yeah. Well, the progression of Racebannon, the earlier with like the Knives and Greenwater split and the To Dream of Autumn split, which by far, like that to me, is like my favorite Racebannon songs. Those two songs on that split, with the like beatbox in the
Yeah,
that's I was so addicted to that song, and I heard it from, like you were saying, somebody made a tape or burned me a CD or something.
yeah,
I heard that, and I was like, oh, I got to get my hands on everything that this band's doing. And then I searched and searched and searched, and then finally got the 7-inch. But like that song, that was the song that stood out to me, and to this day, it's my favorite Racebannon song of all time for me, because I'm old school. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I usually gravitate towards like the first things I hear when I'm
me
hooked
too.
when I'm
Yeah,
hooked on a band is like those songs are like my favorite.
I did the same thing. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because the race band ended up changing so much over the years, and every record we put out was different from the last one. And if you listen to the very first thing we put out and then the very last record that we put out, like that's night and day. And but I am one of those people that I usually like the first record, maybe the second one.
Yeah.
Don't you always like the new stuff, you know? but with Racebannon, my favorite stuff actually was the last stuff that we did. Like the last album that we did with Kurt Ballou was my favorite thing that we ever did.
Yeah, the six sisters. That
Yeah.
was when I heard that, because it I didn't even know it came out, and I was late to it, maybe a half a year after it came out, and I was like, oh shit, Racebannon dropped an album. Like I didn't even know, because I was kind of out of the scene at that point, and then I went back and listened to it, and I was like, holy shit, this is like amazing. Like I can't believe um, this band is putting out such an amazing album. Like years after you guys had already started, I was blown away how good it was and how well it sounded, like recording wise. Like you said, Kurt Ballou, it sounds so goddamn good that I was blown away, honestly.
Ah, thanks. It was the most metal thing that we had ever done, which I sure wasn't upset about that.
Yeah,
I think I was always trying to steer us a little bit more in the metal direction, as we got older anyway.
yeah,
But that was the good thing about that band is, and I'm hearing people talk about or trying to describe Racebannon to somebody else. I always kind of enjoyed that. Like, yeah, you can, it's hard to really,
yeah,
especially when you see the band live, and so people would always, say that if you guys could just capture what you do live in a recording, which we never really could, that's hard to do. But when you would see that band live and you would see Mike Anderson in action on the microphone, it's life changing.
which sucks because I always like Racebannon and 400 Years was two bands that I never saw live. I've seen a million bands live, and it's all. It was always on my bucket list, and unfortunately, I always had to watch like YouTube videos and stuff like that. But watching the YouTube videos, just like you said, the live performances. Obviously, it's not the same as being there and feeling that feeling of the energy and the power, and just that feeling of the live atmosphere. But just seeing videos, that's one of the reasons why I always wanted to see Racebannon live, is just because, and on top of talking to our mutual friends, just saying like, oh, I sat there every night and watched Racebannon. I was fucking blown away every single night. It's just it gives me that good feeling inside about a band like Racebannon. You know what I mean? It is like
Yeah.
Matt Gordon, best live band ever. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh, I love him. If you're watching right now, oh, you are there. I didn't see it on the bottom of my phone there. I
yeah,
thought it was on the side over here earlier. I've seen that kid do some pretty awesome live shows too.
yeah, man, definitely.
Thanks, buddy. Um, yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned like having some of those YouTube videos. We never did the best job of documenting things. Like I always forgot to ask somebody to take pictures, or I always forgot to ask somebody to like, hey, can you shoot this? Can and it wasn't until like after every amazing show, right, that you realize like, man, I really wish somebody would have recorded
Yeah,
that. And we did a tour and did get some. I think it was a gospel tour, and had some of those guys do some filming. And I've got a stack of DVDs from some of those shows
yeah, yeah.
that I need to sort of put something together eventually. Um, but yeah, it's all of a sudden a Racebannon video of a show from 1998 pops up, and somebody will tag me on it, or
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, look at that.
yeah.
That exists. Somebody had that.
I
It's
know.
fun to see.
I'm glad people do that too. I see a lot, because I always had my camcorder with me most of the time, and I see tons of people recording, but I don't see that many videotapes being put forth. Like you said,
Yeah.
people just have it in a box in their garage and never got it digitalized
Yeah.
to put it on YouTube or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's I'm always pushing anybody that has any footage, like get it out there, because I go on the YouTube rabbit hole sometimes, and I hours go by, and I look at my watch, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh God. But it's definitely, speaking of shows, I still have this flyer. I didn't go to, but
Hey.
Dude Fest. I was friends with the guys in Transistor who didn't end up showing up at that. But
Mm-hmm.
gave me like 100 flyers for that up here. I have a stack of these.
The Dude fests were amazing. Those lineups. If you can find some of those posters from
Yeah.
some of those man Dreek Derek Black who did an amazing job putting together like ridiculously awesome lineups. And to have like all of those bands together in one weekend in one city was amazing. Those were fun.
Yeah. I know I never made it out to it, but just looking at the lineups, I was like, damn, I was jealous every time. Every year a flyer would come out. Derek Black is part of Phoenix Bodies, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Phoenix Bodies, such a great band too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that did such a great job, and I still holding on to this too. I'm
There you go.
a old school CD guy, so I hold on to I can too. So I do a lot of streaming, but I try to hold on to as many CDs as I can. I sold all my vinyl, unfortunately.
Did you?
Yeah, I needed money really, really bad, and I had
Yeah.
a ton of vinyl, and I sold it all, like probably 20 plus years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I held on to all my CDs, which is odd, but because nothing plays anymore.
Yeah. No, I still have quite a collection of CDs. I still have quite a collection of cassettes too. I mean, and then of course, stream everything like everybody else. But still, being a big music fan, being a punk kid, I can't help but hold on to all those records and all those. I still have a ton of 7-inch records that it's fun to flip through. And I know that there's a lot that, I tell my wife constantly, like, I need to sell some of these. There's, flipping through, like, I don't need this. Why do I have this, and this, But sometimes it's just fun to just flip through them and not even listen. I don't have to listen to some of them. I just, I look at the cover and I can hear the whole thing in my head, because I just played them out.
Yeah, exactly. I know, definitely. I wanted to ask about touring too back then with Racebannon, and I know you went on a pretty big tour with Helena Troy. What were some of your favorite tours that Racebannon went on back in the day, and what were some of the bands that you enjoyed playing with? Because I mean, Racebannon played with everybody from Creation is Crucifixion, Page 99, Usurp a bunch of times, Jerome's Dream. I mean, like, can you talk about like the tours back in the day?
Yes. It's been quite a while. It's hard to remember a lot of it. I'm also sober now. I've been sober for over a year now. So
Congratulations.
thanks. Some of my memory's starting to come back. But a lot of that touring, there's a lot of drinking going on, so it is hard to remember a lot of that. But yeah, you're right. We played with so many bands, and I got to see so many bands that, looking back, was what a privilege to be able to like witness some of those bands, and sometimes in like a crappy little basement, and or in a garage or somebody's living room, and it was so intimate. And there's nothing like that. Touring is something else. I hate it and love it, and just like I know everybody who tours probably feels the same way. It's a pain in the ass, but it's worth it. Somehow through all the vans, all the nightmares of all the vans breaking down, and we had vans catch on fire, and there's always something. I always used to say the hardest part about being in a band is trying to keep up with your van.
Yeah. A lot of on fire, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to have a lot of those punk tours where you've got to drive. You got to get up at the crack of dawn to drive, 14 hours for the tonight's show, you know. But that's the way it worked out, you know. And even back before we could use computers and email to even set up shows, and we were doing it by phone.
Yeah.
You know, you get what you can get, you know, and that's the show. We got to make it, you know, and there's something pretty special about that too, you know, the pre-internet days and being able to put that together. Just it meant more, you know. People were more in tune to what was going on, and they cared more. You know, they didn't have access to listen to everything, you know, the tip of their fingers just like that, and not care about it. You know, move on to the next thing, or you know, it was going to a show and seeing bands from out of town. Like, was just such a special thing, you know. And then like being able to like hang out with the band that night, you know, like at somebody's house or at a space or at a bar or whatever it was. It was like the thing that everybody did, you know. And I was guilty of it too when bands would come through where I lived. It's fun. You want to show that band a good time. You know, you want them to have a good impression of your town, so they want to come back. You know, but some of the bands that we played with, I mean, you know what? We toured so much with, you know, Gospel and Helen of Troy and all those friends that it's hard for me to remember any tours without those guys.
Yeah.
There's a, you know, and it was nice because it was, you know, being on the road with your family, you know, like being on the road with people that you really trust, you know. If something goes wrong, like you know, and Antonio's in the next van, like I feel better knowing that, you know. Oh, Mecca. Saltwater Coke machines. Yeah. Bringing I remember that now. We got pretty broke. We were trying all kinds of things to make money. I don't know if you know that old trick with the salt water. Yeah.
Yep, I do.
Yeah. And the long piece of tape on the dollar bill, feeding that in and ripping it back out, hitting that change button.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll get 4 quarters and a Coke. Yeah.
I wanted to ask what bands kind of stuck out to you when you played live with them. Who did you enjoy like watching live back then?
Wow. I mean, I'm going back to, I mean, this is pretty much the only thing I ever enjoyed watching was Vinny on the drums. No, seriously, watching gospel in particular was a lot of fun. But it's hard to answer. I don't know. There were so many bands, and we ended up touring much later with Jucifer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know much about them, but they have just a pretty unbelievable setup. The most ridiculous amount of amps, and it was always a pretty fun live show. And touring with them was pretty amazing. That took that band several hours to set up and several hours to tear down. It was something else. But yeah, I think that maybe one of the reasons why I just enjoyed watching them was just because I'm such a gear nerd, and I like to look at amps. So when I see 30 or 40 amps up on stage, you know, the tower of amps, I love it.
I wanted to speak about Repseki too. What part did you play in that band?
Yeah, so that was Repseki really is one person. It's Mike Dixon, and I did vocals on some songs early on, and we did a show. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Repseki. Like sometimes I forget that I was a part of that. But yeah, I guess we did have a split with Usurp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. It's a pretty neat record. And then we were on another comp, Songs for the Dead Volume 2 or something like that. It was Greg Holtzclaw had put it out on his label.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a song on there. I remember being pretty excited because Suicide Note, I believe, was also on there, and we were buddies. And it was like, hey, we're on the same comp. Yeah, it's pretty neat. But yeah, Rep Seki, we did. I only did one show, and I remember it not going so hot. I don't think I had. I don't think we had practiced enough to be able to do a show. I think the show was probably fine. I think that maybe my role at the show was not too successful, but.
Well, you're self-critical. You know, I'm sure it went over probably. That usurp split, that was the picture record.
Yeah.
Picture on it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Really good. Now, Travis Chance from Usurp, he played on that, didn't he? Drums? Didn't he play drums in Rep Seki for a little while?
Mm-hmm. He did, yeah. Yeah.
And was he playing the drums at the show you played?
I believe he might have been. I don't quite remember. You know, at that time there was always people showing up to record this and that, or you know, to to play this show or whatever, and it was just sort of interchangeable. And with the when you do something with Mike Dixon, it's kind of like that. Like he'll you know write and record everything himself, and then like you know have a live band or whatever to play. I feel like at that time that's kind of how that went down.
Yeah.
You know, because he went on with it and kept putting out records as Repseki.
Yeah.
He did a lot. There was a lot of really great things, and it started to change. And I don't know if you were, if you ever listened to the band that some of the other guys in Racebannon did Rap Better Than Horsepower.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you know, Mike Dixon played guitar in that, and you can tell Repseki kind of went in that same direction.
Yeah.
The guitar style, you know, wasn't as fast or heavy necessarily.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, another band that's hard to describe.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with some of us from Indiana. We have a hard time making music that people understand sometimes.
Now, was that simultaneous with Racebannon at that time? Was that kind of just like a side project for you to be part of that?
Yeah, it was a little bit like, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. Can I be on it? Can I do something on it? And, you know, Mike, yeah, sure, of course. And that's kind of how, you know, people got pretty confused with who was in what band. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times people asked me when the next Rapper Than Horsepower record was coming out, or when was the next time we were going to play, you know. It was just a big family, you know.
Yeah. Now,
yeah,
somebody had just asked, is there any chance that there'll ever be a new Racebannon album, like in the future?
That seems unlikely to me right now, but I think that we purposely never actually said that we were done.
Mm-hmm.
We never said out loud that the band broke up or that we were finished. It just sort of dissolved, you know. And we live all over the place. Sal, our bass player, lives in Florida. Mike lives in Chicago. I live in Louisville, Kentucky now, and Brad's in Bloomington, Indiana. So everybody's spread out. I haven't talked with or seen Mike in quite a while. I've heard that he's doing well, and Brad plays in the band I have now, Wenches. You know, I think that would be fun. It is something that I've thought about recently. You know, especially because this year is the 20th anniversary of our Satan's Kicking Your Dick In album, which seems insane that was 20 years ago.
I know, it's so wild.
And the Grips came out the same year, so I guess that CD you've got right there next to you, that's 20 years old too. Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy. What's more likely, like reunion shows or new music? If you had to choose with Racebannon, would you rather play reunion shows, like maybe a handful of reunion shows, or make entirely new music?
Wow. I hadn't really thought about that. I bet that making new music would be pretty interesting because everybody is, gone in so many different directions, musically, and that could be really fun. I had the feeling that that Mike might not be into doing a reunion show, but he could probably be talked into doing something new.
Yeah.
um, but it's kind of like, hey, well, let's play those songs, and then like, why don't we play some of these other ones too? But that would be really relearning some songs that I haven't even heard in so long. That would be challenging.
I wanted to ask about the two singers in the two singer dynamic in the beginning. How did that kind of phase out into just?
Well, the band started with just Mike on vocals, and then Chris joined later, um, and that was a fun time, man. That was like a really fun era of the band. I really enjoyed that. Um, and then once Chris decided, he was going to do other things. I don't remember, the reasoning right now as to why he was, leaving the band. But it was fine, and it was just a natural thing to just go back to having just Mike on vocals. But yeah, I really did enjoy having Chris Williams as another vocalist. There were times that we would be playing shows, and I'd look over and seeing the way that those two would interact
Yeah,
with each other during shows was pretty awesome. It was fun.
yeah. I wanted to ask because I've seen videos and just the energy of it all. I was like, wow. So I always wanted to ask about Chris and Mike together.
Yeah, yeah. I wish we could have done more together. It's too bad that we couldn't, because like I said, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. Now,
I think a lot of go ahead.
with like when I was talking about new music and reunions and stuff like that, you think Chris would jump on a song if you guys wouldn't that be amazing if you put out a new record and got Chris to do some vocals too?
That would be awesome. I think that with everybody being older, and you present ideas like that, it's like, yeah, why not? That would be fun.
Yeah.
He might be into it. That's somebody I haven't talked to him in a long time either. It's been quite a while. But yeah, that it would be fun to sort of get everybody back together and see how that might go.
Yeah. I bet you it would sound amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
it might.
uh, when you mentioned Satan's kicking your dick in, who came up with that concept? I mean, who brought that to the band?
Um, Mike and I did. It kind of, I don't remember how the phrase "Satan's kicking your dick in" started necessarily. Um, I remember us laughing a lot.
Yeah.
I remember us laughing hysterically and talking about this ridiculous idea, this ridiculous concept. And Mike just kept going with it and saying, and then this could happen, and then this could happen. And it was like, man, you're really coming up with quite a story here. And so he ended up writing, um, essentially, it's like, it's just like a screenplay.
Yeah.
And like we turned that, and it was, let's do this as like a rock opera kind of a thing. Um, and it was like, yeah, nobody in this genre does stuff like that. Like,
Oh,
let's
that's
get
what
let's,
I asked.
let's give it a shot. Like, everybody thinks we're weird already. Let's just keep it going. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think that no matter what, well, as soon as you hear the title of the album, it's intriguing. It's
Yeah.
you might want to check it out. And you see the cover of the album, it makes absolutely no sense until you know the story.
Yeah.
Why would this be called "Satan's Kicking Your Dick In"? And it's got this picture of like a drag queen on the cover. Um, but that was a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to make. You know, we were on Secretly Canadian at the time, and when we were putting that album out, I told them we wanted the album to be on Secretly Fucking Canadian, and to actually put that on the back of the record, you know, where they put the logo or
Oh,
the name of the label. They actually had to have like a meeting about it. They had to like really have a big discussion about whether or not that was a good idea. And they did it. They did it. And if you look on the back of the record or the CD, it says "Secretly Fucking Canadian." Yeah, we enjoyed that.
oh, that's awesome. Now, when Racebannon kind of went on hiatus for a little while, is that when Medusa kind of started? And then how did that happen?
Yeah, Medusa was a lot of fun. It was never the plan for Medusa to sort of, you know, be the focus over Racebannon. But that just did kind of happen. Medusa started playing out quite a bit, and it was a really fun band. We had such a blast, and people really wanted to see that band and wanted to hear more from that band. So yeah, we just kept going with it, and you know, it being, you know, 3 out of 4 people from Racebannon in that band, like it felt almost the same, but we missed Sal. Yeah. um, and it was like, why don't we just do Medusa Racebannon tours? You know,
Yeah.
all we got to do is just get Sal in the van and we're good.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, we traveling with that band ended up being a little more difficult. You know, you got, you know, somebody in the band who hadn't really toured like Racebannon, you know, had. The rest of us were used to this being on the road, and
Yeah.
sleeping on floors, and you know, what have you, and eating garbage, you know, and if you're not used to that, um, it's it can be quite a shock and not so fun, and then it can affect everybody else, you
Yeah.
know.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think that was a little bit of a difficulty, um, but that band was so fun. I'm so proud of the things that the records that we put out. So
So,
I'm so proud of them. Like I would love for that band to get back together and do a reunion, because
yeah.
the live show was just something that, like, I could never, I don't think I could ever feel anything like that ever the rest of my life. Just like the magic that happened with that band, when that band was on fire on stage, it was like insanely awesome.
Yeah. You have hidden tapes of Medusa that you haven't put forth online, live sets, like you said you had Racebannon and stuff.
There might be a few, or I don't know. I'll have to look. I think that most of what I have is probably already out there
Yeah.
to see. Yeah. Um, but you know, it's also one of those things that I'll go back and if I see a show and in my memory, you know, that man, that was such a good show, and then I see the video and I'm like, wow, I was pretty drunk. You know, wow, I was playing perfectly. You know, and I'm sure that goes for a lot of people who, you know, who would partake in the would imbibe, you know, with their during their shows. But it's different now. Now being sober and like
Yeah.
seeing that, and I wonder how it would have gone if I would have never been drinking. But I guess, you know, that's neither
Yeah.
here nor there.
I wanted to speak on Torturess too. How did that band come about?
I was working with a friend who was in the band Gerald. We were always talking about music, and um, I knew that he played the bass, and I had an idea to do a dual bass kind of real heavy band, and just to kind of see how it went. And I think that we neither one of us thought it was going to actually happen, that it was actually going to come to fruition. Um, but it did, and it was awesome, and it was so heavy. And we happened to just find the at the time the greatest person who could have played drums on the record, like, and play to start the band with, Daniel Schmidt. He was in the right place at the right time. The way that it happened, it was kind of like, oh, you play the drums,
Yeah.
like, let's try it. And ended up that he was an insanely good drummer. We were able to, play one show with him and record the record. And then he moved, like the morning after our first show.
Yeah.
He moved to like Florida.
Oh.
So we had a little bit of downtime while we found another drummer, and played some shows with him, and then ended up, our third drummer was Kyle Collins, who ended up doing Wenches. And he's not in the band now. Of course, as I mentioned, Brad from Racebannon plays drums now, but Kyle moved, and but having Kyle and Torturess and Wenches was a lot of fun.
Now, actively, those two bands active. Well, I know Wenches is, but Torturess, is that band done, or is it still?
Yeah, no, it's done. As far as I know. I mean, once Gerald moved, it seemed, and then Kyle moved, it seemed too difficult to be able to try to make anything happen, So, and it's too bad, because there were some unrecorded songs that I just loved, and sometimes that just eats at you, like, man, especially if you have like a really bad recording of the practice.
Yeah.
But you hear it, how good that song was.
Yeah.
And like, we never recorded it. Oh my gosh. So I've entertained the idea of like, why don't I just record the whole thing myself? I'll play every instrument, But when am I going to do that? When am I going to have time for that?
It's funny you say my old band, High School Sweethearts. We wrote 3 songs, and they were the most powerful, best songs we ever wrote out of like a 4 or 5 year existence. And we played a handful of shows, and we played 2 of the songs, and I have them recorded video wise, but we recorded the songs, and I regret every time I watch the video. I'm like, oh, these songs are so powerful and
yeah,
the best stuff we ever wrote, and it's not recorded. So I pain, definitely.
Yeah. It's I feel like that happened with Racebannon too. I'd come across, and even now, so we had moved to Louisville, Kentucky recently, so I had to go through a lot of things.
Yeah.
While I was packing up.
Yeah.
And I ended up coming across a lot of like mini discs. I used to record practices on mini discs. And some different burned CDs and things like that. I didn't have any idea what was on them, and I'd hear these things that Racebannon was playing.
Yeah.
That we would record at practice, and like, wow, that was pretty cool. We should have kept going with that.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of songs there that that we were probably too high to remember after 20 minutes of playing them.
Yeah. Now, Louisville, Kentucky, that's a huge college basketball mecca city. Are you into college basketball?
Not really. I mean, I'm a IU basketball fan. Both my wife and I went to IU, Indiana University, and lived in Bloomington. I just moved from Bloomington and was there for about 25 years.
Yeah.
But and then we've gotten into March Madness, here and there. But generally speaking, no, I'm not a big college basketball fan. I'd like to be more of a fan, but just don't find the time to be able to watch as much as I'd like to. Especially, now we've got a 2.5-year-old, so we try to keep the screens off as much as possible.
Yeah. Were you a big Bobby Knight fan back in the day?
Of course.
Yeah. said IU because they had a great team last year. Honestly, I know you're
Yeah,
not really watching too much basketball, but they had a really really good team last year. And Mike, I think it's Mike Woodson from
yeah,
ex NBA coaches coaching them now too. So,
right.
yeah, I enjoyed watching Indiana. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I got a special love for IU basketball. Yeah, it's funny because I grew up in a Purdue family, and so I actually was growing up with like a special love for Purdue basketball. And Purdue basketball, for most of my childhood was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But then going to once I got old enough to go to school and I picked IU.
Yeah.
My brother before me had done it first, so I wasn't the first one. Um, but then, finding out that my dad would then sort of root for IU and they were playing basketball that's a pretty big deal.
I talked to Antonio, and he's a Butler fan because he lives very close to where they play. So
Yeah.
always, I'm a huge college basketball fan, like huge. So that's real. I'd rather watch that actually than the NBA, just because
Oh, me too.
the
Yeah.
competition is better. It's more pure. It's not, people aren't showboating or
Of course. Yeah.
lazy because of money. They're trying to make a living. You know what I mean? So they're playing the hardest that they could play to get to the NBA, which
Yeah.
I appreciate the competition of college basketball. It's amazing.
They're hungry, and it's kind of the way it is with the first album by bands. I think about it that way.
Yeah.
You're hungry. Your creativity is just like it's on fire. So it's like that's when you're going to be making maybe the best ever from in your entire career. For a lot of people with music, that's the case, and maybe with basketball, it's the same way. Once they get signed, they get a little lazy and they
Yeah.
start getting paid, and it's not as passionate as it once was.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I don't want to keep you for too long, so usually I do a rapid fire at the end of these talks. So you ready for a little rapid fire?
Yeah, let's do it.
And also, I wanted to speak about the label that you're running right now. Before we get into that, what's going on with the label? And you have any releases coming out, or like, what are you doing label-wise?
I am putting out a couple of Wenches things here pretty soon, and we are talking about, as I mentioned, doing a split with Fake Piss.
Yeah.
Also talked to Mecca about doing a Choke City split. So that would be awesome. And then I've got a couple other things that I would love to mention, but I'm afraid to because they might not happen. But there's some things that there's something that Antonio and I have talked about putting out together, and hopefully that'll happen. It's I'm not trying not to put too much pressure on myself with doing that label. It's it should be for fun, really.
Yeah.
I like doing the really limited run, releases, the special, like these lathe cuts. Doing those is pretty neat.
Yeah.
'Cause you can get pretty creative with it, and it means a lot more. It means there's a lot of people like me that like to buy records and like to buy the rare stuff or want to also support the band or the label. Like I mentioned earlier, like I've always been a label nerd, and you probably are as well.
Yeah.
When you're around other people and they hear you ask, "Oh, what label is that on?" Like, why would that matter?
Yeah.
But it matters to me.
Yeah.
It's like a big deal. It means a lot to me. And it's just something special that us hardcore and punk kids share.
Yeah, definitely. My runs a small label out of Pittsburgh, Gene Scene Creamers, and he did a small run of, uh, the splattered colored cassettes of my old band High School Sweethearts, and a very limited run, but like you're saying, those are the cool things like that you want to get your hands on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's when you know that there's only 50 of these made,
Yeah,
and you know, and I think about when somebody receives maybe number 4 or number 3 in the mail. Are they like, whoa, I got number 3
yeah,
out of 50? That's pretty cool, you know.
yeah,
Like it's I don't know, it's for me, it's that's something kind of exciting. So as long as people, you know, that people got so excited about that fake piss
yeah,
lathe, it sold so quickly, it sold out so fast.
yeah,
You know, I wish that I would have done more, but I also don't.
yeah.
Like it needed to be limited, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, you played it smart, definitely. All right. I'll like I said, I don't want to hold you up on a Sunday. My first question always is with rapid fire is all-time favorite New England punk hardcore band for you, and from New England, like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you know, Connecticut.
Oh wow. Um, I don't know if I have an answer. That's a tough one to answer.
I mean, I hear a lot of you know names that people dropped were Drop Dead, Orchid, uh,
Yeah,
um, Converge, um, Slapshot, uh, E.
Slapshot was a good one. I was into Slapshot for a bit there, and of course Converge. You know, yeah. You know, when we recorded with Kurt Ballou, just being there in Salem, and like you know we lived there for during that whole time,
Yeah,
and it's a pretty wild place, and it feels like you're part of something different. You know, especially because well everybody knows Converge, and
yeah,
everybody knows who that guy is, you know. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I could probably flip through some of my records and say, no, this is my favorite. No, this one's
yeah.
my favorite. No, I forgot about this one. You know, that could go on for a long time.
I mean, I'm just speaking band wise, like not
Um,
like a record, just like a band.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of Salem, my wife is actually from Salem.
Oh, really?
She grew up there, went to high school there. Yeah,
Nice. That's awesome.
yeah,
It's a place where you quickly get sick of the whole witch thing for sure.
yeah,
You know, like,
yeah,
gosh, I feel bad for these people that live here that are just enough already.
yeah. Yeah, it's almost like with Florida people that have the tourists come down. It's like the tourists come up to go to
Yeah.
Witch Town up in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah. And then when you get there and you find out that it's all a bunch of bullshit anyway.
Yeah, and it's all blocked off, and there's traffic a mile long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they you know, it gets.
Yeah.
But all right, we'll skip to the next question. Um, my next question: what was your first punk hardcore show you attended? But like a real punk hardcore show, you know, not like a Battle of the Bands type of thing, like a real hardcore show that you went to. What was your first one?
Oh. Well, I was the Indianapolis like hardcore scene was like pretty fantastic. It was like looking back, like there was some amazing shows that happened and some amazing bands that would come through, and a lot of the local bands were just so awesome. So I don't know if you would count like you know the numerous split lip shows. I used to hang out with the split lip guys, and some of those shows that they would play, and some of the bands um, that they would play with. Some of those shows that came together. A lot of the shows that I think I saw his name earlier, maybe is watching Steve Dajinski, if he's still out there tuning in. Steve put together a lot of insanely good shows at some community centers, and then later on we had the sitcom, which was a space posted just insanely good shows.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, hard to remember the first one because I just started going and going and going, and there was just like
Yeah.
shows happening constantly, you know.
Well, what one kind of stood out to you? What was like the first one that you were like, oh shit, like this is something that I want to be a part of? I mean, obviously there was probably a lot of moshing back then.
Yeah, that's true, huh? I remember being really, really blown away by Trenchmouth, if you remember
I do remember, yeah.
Trenchmouth. The live show that Trenchmouth put on was like made such a big impression on me. Um, but then, you know, that's a perfect example of like a band that's a little bit different that is like playing shows with hardcore bands or, you know, quote unquote punk bands. And they could probably fit into so many different genres, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why what led me to, you know, have play music that didn't quite fit in was because I bands like that made an impression on me, you know, when I was younger. Um, but I saw a lot of DRI shows, and I think that like um, the insane the cops always came to the DRI shows, and I think that that was probably the case for every place they played in the country.
Yeah.
You know, every show got shut down. You know, every single one.
Yeah.
I think I was at three of them where the cops showed up and shut the show down.
Yeah.
You know, and then there was always a riot. You know, um, but those shows were just so fun. DRI is such a big favorite.
Yeah.
The Dealing with That album, for some reason, just I have a special place in my heart
Yeah.
for that record.
So good. So good.
Yeah,
It's funny you speak on DRI because we were kind of talking about, you know, thrash bands, kind of heavier bands, and then you'd have a band like DRI, where Slayer would wear like DRI shirts. So like a lot of hard
yeah,
would like cross over, hence their record crossover. But you would see the DRI guys wearing, you know, metal shirts, and you would see
yeah,
Slayer guys wearing hardcore shirts, and so there was a lot of people blending together at that time too.
yeah.
I spoke with Kurt on here a while back too.
That's awesome.
Really fun because DRI, you know, was huge to me as well. I got
Yeah,
a couple times back in the day in Providence, and yeah, they're definitely a special band for me as well.
yeah. I loved them, and they, you know, they were obviously the whole crossover thing that you mentioned. That was such a big thing. And it was so at the time it just seemed so natural, but it was, you know, I think a lot of us were like, yeah, well, I like hardcore and I like metal and I like punk, whatever. Like it made sense, you know. Um, and I think a lot of people probably got into a band like DRI with maybe like Thrash Zone because they had, you know, video on Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
And then you go back and listen to like the first couple records, and it's like, wow, this doesn't even sound like the
Yeah.
same band, you know. But yeah, the crossover that time in music was pretty awesome.
Yeah, a lot of
I enjoyed it.
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people hated it, like you said, but I liked it. I wasn't so amped that Agnostic Front kind of turned metal at that time, but I was into like a band called like Crumbsuckers, which like, I saw Crumbsuckers at CBGB's. It was the only time I went to CBGB's. I saw them at Carnivore, which is kind of like a metal-y, hardcore-y band too, as well.
Yeah.
I liked it for the most part because me and you have similar background of metal and hardcore together. Like you said, it was kind of like a perfect balance together. It just, you know, evolved into that.
Yeah.
The Agnostic Front turning kind of metal kind of bummed me out at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was one that I did have a hard time with, but I liked them enough that I just accepted it and I was okay with it. You know, I think that a lot of those bands tried to be a little too metal,
Yeah.
you know, and for some of them it worked, and for some of them, I guess, for Suicidal Tendencies, it worked really well.
Yeah. Did. I'll keep going. My next question: what is your all-time show that you played live, or a handful? Because I know you've played a billion shows. What stood out for you as a like amazing memory to you?
Hmm. Uh, so many bits and pieces. There was a show that we played with Seisha and you and I.
Mm.
Uh, we played a lot of shows together, and I want to say it was New Year's Eve. Um, and for the life of me right now, I can't remember what town it was in. Um, some of the shows that we played at that time were just so incredible because the kids that came out were so incredible, and like the support and the love was so amazing. Um, but you know what? Actually, I do have a show that I think when we were playing with when we were touring with Helen of Troy, and we were playing at this space, and we both bands set up across from each other, and we would alternate playing songs back and forth. And that was probably one of the coolest things ever because the crowd standing in the middle watching them and then just turns around to watch us, and it was kind of like this call and response thing, if you will. And yeah, that was pretty great. We had a pretty good time.
Wow. Now, is there any footage of that show? Because that would be amazing. If somebody had footage of it.
I don't know, not that I'm aware of. Because going back to what I said earlier, we weren't very good at documenting things.
Yeah. Messi-
Yeah,
uh,
there, Ms.
that's
Messina saying sickest shit ever. It was, wasn't it?
awesome. All right, I'll keep going. My next question: what was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show you attended that you didn't play, that you went to and saw a band? What's your all-time favorite hardcore
Ooh.
punk show that you saw?
Uh, maybe seeing Cro-Mags doing Age of Quarrel. Um, I remember I was so excited to see them play Age of Quarrel, and there was like four of us that gave a shit at the show,
Yeah.
you know? And
Really?
there was,
Really?
yeah, and I'm like, wow. I mean, this was in Indianapolis, and they um, it was well attended, but nobody seemed to care. And there was like four of us that were singing every word and that were like loving every minute of it. I just remember like it felt amazing to me because I just was so in love with that album,
Yeah.
and to like I knew every single note and every word, and
Yeah.
just was like, can't believe I'm hearing this. Some of those records that you hear and that you just are absolutely in love with. If you never have a chance to see that artist playing that, it's just there's a hole in your soul, if you will, that something that can never be satisfied. But having a chance to actually like see a band when they're gonna that became a big deal, over the last like 10 to 20 years, bands getting back together to perform one album
Yeah.
and going on tour to play this one album.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, I didn't think I'd ever be able to see them play that,
Yeah.
So to finally like be able to do that, I think it means a lot to people. So some of those bands that would do that, they know how much that means to the fans, and so that's kind of how I felt being able to see Cro-Mags do Age of Coral. It's pretty insane.
Yeah. I got to see Cro-Mags once on. It was like a reunion like tour. I think like I don't know if Best Wishes came out and then John Joseph came back to play the reunion shows, like because it was like 10-year reunion of or something like that, where it was
Yeah.
the original lineup, and it was at the Paradise in Boston, and Byrne opened up for him, and like I was just so lucky to get to see Byrne and Pro-Mags because my love for Byrne and
Oh, oh my God. I remember seeing Orange Nine played with Quicksand and Helmet,
mm,
and Chaka like saw my I had some patches like on my jacket,
yeah,
like maybe a Gorilla Biscuits patch, and he said, "Hey, you want to show that to Walter? You want to come get on the bus?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." So he took me to the tour bus, which was like a pretty big, awesome bus, and everybody was hanging out, and I got to meet everybody, and then Walter kind of gave me some shit about how he never got paid for those patches to be produced. But man, seeing Orange Nine was pretty awesome. I'm such a Burn fan and
Yeah.
such an Orange Nine fan at the beginning too. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm a big Gorilla Biscuits. I have this like really shitty Gorilla Biscuits tattoo right here.
That's awesome.
So
But it's a Gorilla Biscuits tattoo,
it,
shitty or not.
yeah, yeah, it's old. It's really old.
I have a pretty insane love for Start Today.
Yeah,
Um, that album is like pretty important to me.
yeah.
I had a very short-lived Gorilla Biscuits cover band. Very, very short-lived, and the idea was to play all of Start Today. And in fact, we called the band Start Today.
Yeah.
And it didn't last long enough, but playing those songs was so fun. Um, we had two vocalists. I was one of them,
Yeah.
and oh man, it was such a good time. And unfortunately, the one of the guitar players actually just passed away. A good friend of mine from cancer here, just like a week and a half ago, something
Sorry.
like that. But yeah, it made me think a lot about that band that we did, and so I thought a lot about Gorilla Biscuits.
Now,
Like I gotta.
there any recording of that?
I don't think
Oh,
so. Boy, yeah, I screwed that one up.
yeah.
I should have. Probably, I was kicking myself, I'm sure, after the band was kind of called it quits for not having any sort of like video footage or anything. That would have
Yeah. Yeah.
been great.
It's been amazing here. I'll keep going. I'm a big movie guy. I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
It was that uh, Fantastic Beasts, the Dumbledore
Oh, yeah.
newest one. My wife and I just watched that like night before last.
Oh, wait.
It was good. Yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like a lot of fantasy, sci-fi movies. I like a lot of horror movies. So I usually have to watch those by myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to find time to watch movies anyway. I mean, like I said, we have a 2.5-year-old, and we're lucky to have enough time to like watch one episode of a show.
Yeah. I have 2 daughters, and I also have 3 dogs and a wife. So it's like I usually watch movies in segments. It's like, all right, I can bang out 45 minutes, and then tomorrow night I'll try to bang out like another.
Yeah.
Like it's very trying, but I try to do it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, I always ask, what's your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, I mean, I guess of all time, I'm gonna have to say really the Halloween franchise. Probably specifically Halloween 2.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Um, uh, oh boy,
What
could
about
add a lot to that list, but I think my first answer would be like, yeah, Halloween 2.
so? What about in the past 10 years? What's been your favorite horror movie in the past 10 years?
Um, Something that comes to mind are like the Jordan Peele horror movies, Get Out and Us.
Yeah,
Pretty good stuff.
yeah, us.
I'm pretty excited to see Nope. Um, yeah, he's got a pretty keen eye for horror. But yeah, I don't. It's hard to remember some of the other ones that I've seen. There's been what was it Cronenberg's son who did
That's her.
yeah
That was
that
that was
that